But yeah, so the big thing is like now work is occasionally hearing me make jokes about wanting to die, and most recently, like I talked about how I was taking a vacation and how I said I was going to take a vacation, and my coworker asked me like, "What are you going to do on your vacation?" I go, "I'm going to be fucking sad." And immediately knowing that I had committed a horrendous atrocity, I covered my mouth. But it was too late, as my coworker immediately asked, like, "Seth, are you okay? We have our department has has mental health services if you need them." I'm already on them. It was a joke. I'm sorry. It's just how I talk. Please, like.
When I came out of my exam today, I was a little, like, oh, that sucks. And I was like, I want to die, and I forgot I was in a crowded thing. And apparently I said it out loud enough that the person in the table next to me was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Oh, no, I was just joking."
Anyway, welcome to Banana House.
Banana House.
Wow. This
nice
is fun at Banana House.
I haven't talked that much at work about my hobbies, but I did say that I was in a video game, and people were like, "That's cool," but they didn't really really look into it that much. Like, they didn't get the game or watch anything about it. They were just kind of like, "Wow, that's cute." Like, I was showing them my science fair project report or something.
Well,
so,
the thing with that is when you say a video game to people, if they don't play video games, you don't really know what they're thinking when you say that.
Even people, a lot of people I work with do play video games. Also, 2 of the people I work with are DJs in their spare time, so
oh,
I feel
God!
Like there's no way that I could ever come with something more embarrassing than that. So, I'm good, honestly. There's nothing I could say at work that I do as a hobby that's more embarrassing than saying that they're a DJ.
God, that scares me. Like that, I just have that weird one coworker who keeps sending me memes. I don't know how I deal with when my coworker said he was a DJ.
One of my coworkers knows a couple of famous nerdcore artists and stuff who still go to PAX and stuff. I don't remember their names off the top of my head, but he was like, have you heard of this guy? And I was like, vaguely, and he was like, I know him, we're friends. And I was like, oh my god.
So, one of my coworkers was a DJ as well, but literally all he did was pull up Google YouTube videos during weddings and events.
I mean, that's a hell of a racket.
Yeah. Although, I'll never forget, somebody came to him with a wedding request for a playlist, and they wanted Crazy Frog.
My roommate used to be a DJ. I think he still is a DJ. I'm no longer roommates with him.
He's still
because he was a DJ.
It's not his lifestyle; it changed. It's yours.
To be fair, I think the last day I ever saw him before he went to British Columbia was he's like, you want to do some mushrooms with me? And I was like,
hell yeah.
He ran out. He didn't have mushrooms by the time I got there, but.
Oh, if we're all Danganronpa 2, then I should be Danganronpa 2 as well.
No, you can be. Also. You can follow your heart.
Yeah.
He's just here with everybody.
I could be Sonya. I could be Chiaki. No, I'll be Chiaki.
By the way, we're not actually playing. We're just fucking around.
There we go.
I know. I just want.
I had to restart.
Did you want to be Chiaki here?
Yeah, I want to be the gamer wife.
The bouncy gamer.
The bouncy gamer wife.
The bouncy gamer. That's my private Twitter display name right now.
I really got to get something funny or fancy for my private Twitter, because right now it's just sad.
I think my private Twitter is just called iCat at night.
I don't really use mine except to just complain sometimes.
That's what everyone uses for.
That is explicitly what my private Twitter is for, is to be mad.
Anyway.
It's either to be mad and like drag people without them knowing about it, or to be horny, or if you're me, to post pictures of ducks with identifying locational metadata that would allow someone to figure out where you live, so you have to keep it private.
I have to say, I am loving the Duck Vac series.
Yeah, there's
Duckback.
a colony of ducks that lives in my apartment complex, and
You followed them
just
since they were
everywhere.
hatched.
Yeah, there's 2 batches of ducks that have hatched since this season, this spring, and I was following their updates.
Okay, I updated
If
my.
it wasn't very compromising, it was like duck back and make it into the main Twitter.
Sometimes
There
I
we go.
post things on main, but not as much because I just don't want that much people to interact with me, honestly. Like right now, my level of Twitter interaction is that when I post something, like the people who reply will reply like nice things that I can reply to, and like only a couple people will, and then that's it, and I'm like, nice.
That's pretty rad.
It's like ideal, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, status update. I have changed my private Twitter name to something funny.
Is it Bouncy Gamer Wife?
No, it's another really stupid in-joke based off something. No. I'm not gonna say it out loud because it's like really stupid.
Well, as long as it's funny, Seth.
Let me tell you about this Let's Play called of Danganronpa 2 on Paula Hoka's channel, where we constantly say stupid shit.
Oh yeah, there sure is at least 30 hours of me saying the most ignorant bullshit known to man.
You can go watch
well as
that,
it-
by the way, on my channel.
Yeah, what is that channel called, Polahoko? If someone wanted to watch not only the Danganronpa 2 streams that we did, but also the first iteration of another episode going through Danganronpa Absolute Despair Girls.
That would be youtube.com/Polahoko. That's me. And I play games with my buddies Devac, Seth, and iCat, and sometimes other people too.
Hell
Of course,
yeah.
if you're watching this, you're already there, so I've taken all the work out of it.
You
I was
know,
like
You
wondering
did
what
it.
this
Good job.
listen,
You
I've
don't
hung
even
around
have to
with
do
Slubby.
anything. You can just click on the other videos. You're already there.
I've hung around with Slow Beef enough that I've learned how to shill, so, you know.
It's true. You really can't say it enough. Like compared to how often like you think about your stuff, other people don't, and like there's really not. There's a high bar for like how many times is too many times.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should probably get down to business if we're going to make our 10 p.m. date.
Yeah, so to let everyone know, about 2 weeks ago, we finished Danganronpa 2. That trial, we had to break up, and even then it was still pretty long, so we didn't really do a proper debrief in the way that we did Ultra Despair
we were
Girls.
exhausted by that time.
We also might have went on a long tangent about knife monomy, but
You know
we
what?
sure
You
did.
know what? We still won. We still came out
After sleep, post dichotomy.
Mods are sleep
We
post knife monomy.
for about 15 or 20 minutes afterwards. We just made knife monomy memes together as friends, and that's really what it's about.
Yes. Which, mind you, I just want you to know that, like, the next day, a friend of mine DM'd me and was like, why did I wake up to you, Polahoko, iCat, and DVAC all posting knife monomy
And
within a
Orin.
minute?
Also,
They don't-
everyone
too.
across the board got mad at me for doing that. No one responded positively to me spamming knife monomy at like 10:30 at night on a Friday. I'm still mad about it. I also posted it in a couple of my friends' Discords, and they were also mad at me for doing it.
I
Well,
wasn't mad
DVAC,
at you.
obviously you should post in the world's best friend Discord, SethSeries Existential Dread, where you can post as many knife monomies as you want.
You should invite me to your Discord.
Okay. Sadly, it is no longer Dollywood, which was a very fun gimmick for like 2 weeks.
No. Oh, that's good. This is good fun.
also if you go into that Discord and see our nightly debauchery,
Oh God.
I'm in the Discord. I'm giving my real-time reactions.
Welcome to the Discord. It's real fucking stupid.
It opened me on No One Is an Island.
Oh wow, that should absolutely not be doing that, because that's the... Oh, I know why that did that. Whoops. I may have made the invite link while looking at that, so that's my bad. That's the Judgment for Event channel. Whoops. Anyway.
It says Devious Vacuum just arrived. Seems OP. Please nerf.
I gotta find it.
Main chat. That's me. That's me, everyone.
I thought about, like, I was gonna do a custom message, but we don't get new people enough that it would be very funny. But no, I think the most powerful thing in that Discord is just the incredibly stupid names everyone has.
That's good. That's what I like in a Discord, honestly, is the ability to change my name to something stupid. In Kobody's Discord, they took away the ability for people to change their own names because they were mad that everyone kept changing it to stuff. So on that one, I'm semi-permanently Diet Hee-Haw.
Diet Hee-Haw.
Hee-Haw.
Oh, that's still good.
Which is a real-life drink that existed up until like 10 years ago, which is a Mountain Dew generic brand.
Oh man.
Called Hee-Haw.
Everyone's friends with Chiaki.
Yeah, everyone loves
But it's
Chiaki.
true. In real life, I am a Diet Yeehaw. That's a good characterization of me.
Before we actually get started, I want to give one quick shout out to person in my Discord, Speedball, for the stupidest name that we just came up with on the fly of "My cat doesn't appreciate racism," which was something he said out loud, and everyone lost their goddamn mind for about 30 minutes.
So, Danganronpa 2. What are we thinking,
All
guys?
my children are here.
Did you?
So do we want to
enjoy it?
take? Do we want to go with this in a more guided fashion, or do we just want to like hit?
We got 15 minutes.
Oh, no, not this terrible child.
Oh yeah, he doesn't get to be a part of this.
Throw him off the table.
Yeah, get rid of
Throw
him.
him away.
Oh, like what was the game? The game was interesting. I feel like really the thing to talk about is the twist, right? Like the twist that we were ultimate despair, going through a rehab simulation that got messed up.
Yeah, I think that especially like that is definitely the talking point of that, because while there are some really good bits throughout the way, like I think there are definitely some standout cases, and there are some not so standout cases. The twist is definitely the big thing about this game that kind of, I would argue, differentiates it from the first game.
It's interesting. I think after you play the first game, you're thinking, and especially after playing Ultra Despair Girls, you're thinking about the extended world that was going on out there, and like, what was it like if you were on the bad side? Like, that's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, I think Danganronpa 2's like complete end game. I just liked it way more than Danganronpa 1's.
Once it takes off, and like once you're in the mix, it goes wild. Because like at the end of right after Chiaki gets executed, things just get weird. Like you start seeing it's apparent that something isn't right. Like you start getting the increased graphical glitches, which you've gotten like one or two throughout the game through like what I think were like incredibly stressful moments for Hajime. But at that point, like you can clearly see that like the seams of the world are coming apart.
I really enjoyed the way it communicated that as like just these system glitches, and everybody coming back when they were dead, and everyone kind of just acting like they never left.
Yeah, those the game really does some like vicious. It really plays with some of your expectations in a way that I think are very it's almost cruel in a way. Because at some point, like, and that's part of what Junko is doing too, is there's a lot of moments of like, hey, you could snap your fingers and everything's fine. And even during, like, there's the saccharine moment where everyone is very much considering just letting that happen. And, you know, like, the only, like, even Chiaki is there, and Chiaki's just like, hey, everything's good, until, yo, everything's not good, and, like, the spell starts breaking.
Mm-hmm. I really like the idea that it's building off of stuff that happened in the first game, but it doesn't really become apparent until the end game, where it's revealed that everything that you did was really just to get at these other people.
Yeah, the entire, like, Naegi and his comrades start, like, their reasons for rehabilitating the ultimate despair come from very good intentions that go the moment...
Weren't they against it?
No, they're the ones who, like, they were against things going bad. Like, they did. So the way this kind of plays off, and it's not really so much of a spoiler for it's not really so much of a spoiler for Danganronpa 3 because it's a bit moment. But Naegi, Byakuya, and Kirigiri just kind of find Hajime as Kawakura. Like, he goes with them willingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This...
Well, and
Go ahead.
if I remember right, then they all of them went willingly because of Junko's plan, wasn't it?
Yes. Kamakura was the one that uploaded Junko into the system. They went willingly to set this whole thing up for themselves.
Which, at the end of Ultra Despair Girls, you see that start happening when Kawakura smashes Kuro and Shirokuma.
Who were parts of, like, an AI Junko.
Yeah.
Which, by the way...
Junkos.
I think outside of the whole world being a simulation thing, I think Chiaki not being real is what really got me. I didn't anticipate that.
That was really interesting. That like the like mastermind Confederate traitor type character was good.
Right.
Yeah, that was I like that twist a lot, and especially because it's very apparent that something is going on with Chiaki, and you don't... Like, there's always, like, a little bit of a string of, you know, Chiaki is ultimately saved our asses, but some of the ways that she has done it are... Some of the ways that she has done it are very pragmatic in a way that you don't think that she should have access to. Like, she is always...
Sorry, go ahead.
She is always, like, a step ahead of you in a way that it feels like she should not be.
You sounded like you were actually surprised when that was revealed. Did you see that coming at all? Devac?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were talking to Seth. Not really. Like, I mean, I feel like, you know, you can tell as the game starts to really, like, let you know, but I didn't think it would be a simulation. I did not, I think, without getting too much into V3 spoilers, like, I feel like an issue that I have with these games, is that I feel like a lot of times the end game makes like, a big portion of the build-up feel pointless. So I didn't expect it to be a simulation, but when it was, I was kind of like, oh, okay, that explains references in V3, but also, like, I don't know, all of it being fake, kind of, like, it being, like, part of a rehabilitation program, I don't know, I think it kind of undid a lot of the, like, sort of basic stuff from the beginning, and was kind of like, none of that was important. what was really important is that you were all Ultra Despair.
I mean,
Ultimate Despairs.
Yeah, I do. I don't remember if they do it properly, but I wish the hinting towards them being Ultimate Despair was like a bit more obvious. I couldn't tell. Like, I could tell the simulation one when I think back on it. But
I think one scene that I really like, and that's where Nagito is acting up and putting bombs everywhere, and Akane is trying to get him to say where they are, and she's just choking him out and is on the verge of killing him, and Chiaki has to slap her and be like, that's not who you are, right? You're not that kind of person. And there's that little crack where it's like, that's what these people are on the inside.
The thing that I will say, and I think is kind of more evident on a second run through, each of the characters' quirks are a lot more like they, like all of their like eccentricities. Like the cast has like a little bit more, I'd say a little bit more of like a darker tinge to them than the last one did. Except for like maybe Nidai and obviously Chiaki. Nidai is just here for have some fun, but like, you know, for all of Byakuya's bluster, like he's a, for all of Byakuya's bluster, he's a dick. Like,
Yeah.
cause like Fuyuhiko has hurt people, and like even before even both before and after his character development, he is still very quick to go to violence and intimidation. Gundam's entire Gundam runs a lot on the concept of I want to be feared. Kyoko is very vicious and spiteful in a way that is like,
yeah, even before they were Ultimate Despairs, they were all kind of little shits.
yeah. And the thing I kind of think about that is like when you start looking at it, like all of them are maybe, like the Naegi's class has a, like they have some character to them, but I think there are parts of this class that even before, like a thing starts shining through, you can see the malice. You can see like the malice in them.
The potential for it,
yeah.
Yeah. I think that something about all the Danganronpa games is like once you know the twist and you go back, you see how it is foreshadowed in really subtle ways, but while you're playing it the first time, it just kind of bounces right off of you. And I think that's cool from a replayability standpoint, but I don't know how I feel about it. For 2 and V3, I was kind of like, yeah, like the second time around's gonna be real cool, but I wish you had maybe, with all the hand-holding that the games do, explaining,
yes.
Like they kind of skip over explaining the stuff that I'm like, well, damn, I wish someone would have got into more detail about that.
And the other side of that too is like for all that foreshadowing makes a second playthrough all the more interesting. There's no way to cut down on some of the repetition and some of the fat that makes that while you're engrossed in the mystery, you're kind of willing to navigate through, and you're still trying to cut through it, but maybe at it's more digestible. Whereas on a second run through where what happens, like a lot of that, it turns from, it's stuff that you were navigating through to its tedium.
It feels like some parts of the game are there really just to make the game longer for no other good reason.
Yeah, and it kind
Strawberry
of
House did
interferes
not
with
need to be that
the stuff
long.
I want to know. And like I have to learn all this bullshit about Strawberry House and where the rooms are when what I really care about is these characters, right?
Mhm.
And like
Right.
there's so much emphasis on the rooms in the Strawberry House that if I pay too much attention to the characters, then I don't know. It's an interesting thing because like I kind of got over in V3. I got over the violence and the fact that like these characters are gonna die, and they're gonna die in ways that are kind of like goofy and disrespectful. So you shouldn't like let it hit you too hard in your heart. But like, I want to know more about like the worlds that these characters are from. Like I want to know what Fuyuhiko's parents were like. Like I want to know these things, and like I don't remember. And then everyone's like, oh, I don't remember anything, and like it's like I'm always trying to grab onto something and I don't grab it. I don't got it.
So
And that's the thing too, especially because especially for case 2, where case 2 is entirely devolved around a myth arc around like 3 characters past.
yeah,
And you get that information, and then it's just like nothing else.
so
Like you
Wow.
get this myth arc, and we're never going to go
has-
back to that.
One of the problems Danganronpa has in general is that there is characterization here. Like, outside of the main plot, these are interesting characters, but they lock it all away behind free time events, and you only get a little piece of that.
And you have to like micromanage and specifically plan that around the fact that there are characters who are going to die.
Mm-hmm. Like, when I
And that, you know-
originally played through, I didn't care for Akane at all. Like, I thought she was a joke character, but if you go through her free time events, she's actually really well developed.
Yeah, a good chunk of Akane's depth lies in that, and I was the same way for Chiaki. Like my first playthrough, Chiaki, I did not care about that character.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, in my head, it was like, hey, I can hang out with Goth Murder Nurse, Karate Woman, and Coach, and, like, Hell Coach, and those are my friends.
Right. Shit coach who just yells about needing to take a shit.
That's so
Yeah.
bad. I hate that so much. Now that I know so much about the world, there's so many more things. But I feel like also, like, he couldn't be active until later because he would have, like, actually... Because he's a manager, right? Like, they wrote a character
Right.
that was a manager.
Yeah.
And then they had a team that needed to be managed. So I guess they made it so that he couldn't manage them and bring them together and motivate them in the way that they needed to be in the beginning of the game because he had to poop really bad.
I mean, you've got Byakuya as a uniting force, and then all of, like, everything that goes through Chapter 1 happens, and then Chapter 2 is Chapter 2, a good chunk of your cast are having a really vicious squabble in them, and like there's some other things that, especially on a second playthrough, I'm really curious that they didn't just. I'm curious why they didn't handle it in some of the ways that they do. You know, like a lot of the cast, we never really get to linger on outside of maybe some of the things with Hiyoko. That even before Mahiru is murdered, like at the barest minimum, like both Peko and Fuyuhiko have blood on their hands, and that's never a conversation that comes up. That's never a talk that is had, you know. And obviously Peko isn't around long enough to really have those conversations. But you have Fuyuhiko, who spends the rest of the game arguably as the second main character, or as the third main character alongside Hajime and Chiaki, and like you just never get any bits of that confrontation.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't happen in all of these games that is like talking about that character and like their existence in the real world and like what that means, like the scope are beyond the killing game in a way that is deeply unrealistic. If I was in a killing game and I found out someone was a murderer, I would be like, oh, right? It wouldn't just be like a casual accusation of like, you're a Yakuza, you're a murderer, right? Yeah, I am. It would be like, no, like you have to tell us about this. Like this is not okay.
And I mean, like, there's definitely some other like weird idiosyncrasies like that. Like you said, you know, no one ever has a sit down with Fuyuhiko about, hey man, listen, we get that you're like, as a part of you trying to like help us overcome this, we need to have this talk. And even around that, you know, like I think there's some like I love Fuyuhiko. He's one of the better characters in this game. There's just some other like weird, like there's some weird idiosyncrasies with it, like, you know.
Oh yeah, I love Fuyuhiko. Like as a character, he goes through so much. He changes so much in this game, and really like reveals like that he has this very like honorable core. It's very I really like that character a lot.
Fuyuhiko starts the game as like this really shitty like bratty kid and ends the game as Kazuma Kiryu.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I'm gonna be right back. I have to turn off my ice machine.
That's all good.
Speaking of the endgame, I do really appreciate they didn't go with another like hope thing, which they were about to hint at, but then they went for I think a much better, like, it's weird to say moral for Danganronpa, but basically like, hey, you're as bad as your past may get, it's not going to, it's not an anchor. You can move forward.
Well,
You
it's
can-
the
you
kind
can
of
al-
theme that's, you know, trying to be pigeonholed into one area or the other, and just being like, no, this is, I'm not choosing either of those. I have to do this for myself.
I actually really like this game's theme of, you know, you can always course correct to try to start bettering yourself. Like, I think that's really important, and especially, I think there are moments of this game that kind of get retroactively undone because of what the Danganronpa 3 anime does. But there is like the ending theme of you have done horrific things that you will have to live with, but you can learn to live with this and start making the path, like working the path that not only undoes this, but keep like...
It's like, don't deny yourself a future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the choice that they had to make when they found out that they were Ultimate Despair is like, that really hit me a lot more than the ultimatum in V3. Like, I was like, oh shit, like, that's a complicated question. I'm not sure what I would do.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucked up.
Not to go into spoilers, I do also think that, like, the choice in V3 is a very different... I think they're similar in what that choice entails, but the consequences and the aftermath of those choices, I felt, are very... I agree with you in that I think this version of that choice and that the way this handles it is like way different, and like I think it's the better of the two.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about V3, but just going off of like the first game where it's like the basic thing is like hope versus despair, which
It's a good base for the series.
it's a good base for the series, but I feel like past versus future is,
Like
especially the one they laid out.
The theme for the first one is obviously hope versus despair, and in this one, I think it's the future. And when I say that, I mean the ultimatum that they were given is you don't have to go back to this world where you've done these horrible things. You could all just stay here and not do anything. And that's, in the situation, that's actually a really appealing choice. But
Yeah.
it's the notion that you can face those things and you can make your future for yourself. And Chiaki just kind of being there to be like, just facilitate that. And being like, no, everything that you did here is not meaningless.
Yeah. The
Like-
realization that they were gonna have to go back to older bodies that were fucked up, that were like deeply fucked up, like physical bodies, like when they're like, oh, the person who's probably Mikan tried to take the womb out of Junko's dead body and put it in her body. Like, you're gonna go back to that body? You're gonna wake up in that one? That was so horrifying. I was like, oh wow, like that was so much more effective than stuff in V3.
It really is, and like there's some really uncomfortable body horror, and like the worst thing you see, and it's not even in a game that you theoretically could have played at the time. Like you see, so Nagito's 1.5 model has Junko's hand.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I remember Paula said it was covered by a mitten.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In Ultra Despair Girls, that is him in Ultimate Despair, and he took her hand and put it onto his, and it doesn't function, but it's there and it hasn't rotted. But I really like Nagito's reveal in that when he got that book and he found out that everyone was Ultimate Despair, his plan was to kill everybody, including himself. so that they don't escape.
It makes sense with his character too. He's like,
It does,
I do not
like-
want.
Even when he is in ultimate despair, he does things that he thinks will work out in the end.
Like,
Oh, yeah,
Nagito
wasn't his entire-
becomes a monster.
Wasn't his entire thing like, oh, no matter the deeper like the despair, like the more hope is gonna come.
His
afterwards.
thing is, like, he's a cursed, like, meme character, I know, but he doesn't believe in weak hope. And he will facilitate people getting stronger, even if that means he has to become a monster to do that.
I mean, like, the weird thing is, like, especially with Nagito being kind of a meme character, I think it takes away from, like, the fact that he has, like, a very... He's arguably the most consistent character throughout the entire game.
And
even
backstory is cool as hell. Also, like there is like it makes so much sense that someone whose power is luck would become so detached from reality because everything works out for you, like in a way that it doesn't work for other people. It's like you don't follow the same rules as other people, so it makes sense that you would become detached.
No matter what, I can fumble my way into winning, so why should I... You know, why should I...
Like,
Why should
everything
I-
inherent to the society he lives in doesn't matter to Nagito. 'Cause
Yeah.
But also,
No matter what,
he forces himself out of, like, meaningful relationships because he is afraid of, like, his luck killing people, like it did his parents.
Yeah.
He's just
Like,
he's a
Nagito
very
is a-
interesting character.
He's
a-
so interesting. Yeah.
He's a complete piece of shit, but he's... Like I said, he is the most consistent character from, like, zero to finish.
He reminded me so much once I found out that story. It actually reminded me a lot of those documentaries about the Fire Festival that came out, where they interviewed like that one guy, like Billy, whatever, who like orchestrated it, and throughout the thing they like have like actions that he took and like quotes from him and stuff like that, and it's very clear that this man is just like unable to stop himself, and he's like begging someone to stop him, right? He's like, he just keeps making worse and worse decisions, and everybody keeps saying, oh, but he's so charismatic and he's such a good businessman, and he's obviously not. He's just fooling these people, and he knows that he is, but he can't stop himself, and he keeps like falling forward, and no one ever stops
Oh
him
my god,
until
that
he
has
goes
to
to
be a
jail.
nightmare.
Yeah, like they interview his parents, and his parents are like, he was always so gifted and smart and great, and like his like mentor and his mentor's like, yeah, he's just such a good businessman, and like you talk to him and they interview him and they have quotes from him, and he's obviously not. He's obviously just some Joe Blow, like, you know, guy who started a company that failed and started some other companies that failed too.
Oh my
But, like,
god, just imagine
nobody-
that. Imagine
Yeah.
having that charisma and knowing that all the decisions that you make are terrible, but nobody, like, you don't know, and nobody will tell you.
Nobody will tell you. Nobody will stop you.
Oh my
It
God,
was
that's
just
a
like the most
nightmare.
terrifying thing, especially because from the perspective of the documentary, like it was very clear that this man was like not. Like, I didn't see him and think, like, oh, this is someone who would be able to convince me to, like, give him $50,000 for a festival. But nobody around, like, he just was never going to be around anybody who was going to stop him, not even his family. Like, that was just really fucked. And it made me think about that when we learned about Nagito, because, like, what would you do if nobody could stop you? Right? Like, and if you were, like, trying, you know, there are people who... you know, like Mob from Mob Psycho 100, right? Who would take a step back and try to figure out who they were in this space where they're like have this kind of power. But there's also people who would not be able to stop themselves, right? Like who would just like go crazy with it.
That's amazing.
That also gets into like the talents everyone has, and like Hajime's.
Oh yeah, that's
I like the
another
idea.
theme. That's another theme where it's like they live in this world where talent is everything, and they're seen, you know, people without talent are seen as like second-class citizens.
Yeah,
And
everybody's
then
reduced to one thing.
Yeah,
And I do
enter
love that
Hajime, which
even-
is like, he Frankensteins himself, but the talent, going back to, Byakuya, the fact that they live in this world where you are your talent, it eats at them because they cannot, it's like they don't have any identity.
Yeah, and then Hajime as the monster with long hair, because is his talent is talent. He doesn't have a personality.
I do love that even with all his talents, he still fell to despair because Junko was able to convince him. This talentless monster who's not supposed to feel anything still felt despair.
That's the thing the anime does get right.
Yeah, like the way that she wins him over is really fascinating. And the thing about Hajime, especially as Hajime becomes Izuru, is that he and Nagito go through very similar bits in character that lead them becoming the like monsters that they become. Izuru, much like how Nagito can always count on, no matter what, I will fumble my way into winning. This will go my way no matter what. Izuru, like, Kamakura can do anything. His talent is talent, but his skill is possibility. Anything, like, he can tackle or solve any problem. There's no excitement or predictability to it. He can just do it. And so you see him develop in a very different way, whereas, Nagito is detached. Kamakura is trying to find meaning when he is trying to find meaning in like this weird existential meaning.
Oh yeah,
in a world
Kamakura
where
is Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I should read Watchmen at some point.
Oh, it's just the same thing of like having such power, having such godlike power that you become detached from humanity. But like his is very predictable and very known, right? Like his whole thing is that he knows everything. There's nothing that he doesn't know. Versus Nagito, who doesn't know everything, but things just magically work out for him in a way that he can't control.
Nagito doesn't have to know everything because regardless, it will work out for him.
Yeah, so it's like Nagito is like chosen by the gods versus like Kamakura is a god.
Yeah.
Also, I really like that Nagito is like this analog to Makoto, where in the first game Makoto is mentioned as being lucky, but it's like regular kind of luck, where it just kind of pulls through for him sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. Whereas Nagito is just like, there's no off switch for it.
It's just, only thing he trusts is his luck, which is kind of like deeply unsettling when you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong in doing it, but when you start thinking about what exactly that entails, that's when it starts getting uncomfortable. And I think that, like, just in general, Nagito is vastly more interesting than Naegi. And, Naegi himself is... I think Naegi is arguably one of the most... Like, he has bits of an arc, but even through this, Naegi is still fun. Like, I think Naegi is still the person that he was at the end of Danganronpa 3. Or, sorry, Danganronpa 1. Despite having gone through...
Yeah, I think for the most part, the same person. He was just like the anchor. I mean, he's maybe a little more confident, but he's still basically the same.
Yeah.
Whereas
Hajime is the best protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We should talk about that. Hajime is the best protagonist. He says the things that you are actually thinking as you are reading and hearing this dialogue, which is amazing.
I mean, that's kind of, it harkens back to him being the Reserve Corps student, where he's with these people that have amazing talents but don't know how to function socially. And there's just the normie who's just kind of looking at this and shrugging and being like, really, guys?
He's the person who has, like... He's your friend who just knows a bunch of, like... Who has just had to, like... he's your friend that has had the shit kicked out of him his entire life and has just had to like figure it out for himself versus just being able to coast by on natural ability. You know, he's arguably the hard work versus the talent.
Yeah.
Which even then, you know, not like Hajime gets some pushes and like there are some conclusions that he gets help going to through Chiaki. But a lot of the, you know, even contrasting to like Naegi, who in some situations just kind of, I feel like Naegi really does kind of bumble his way through some stuff and it just works out. Because that's just his character. Like Hajime, a lot of the conclusions that Hajime gets to are hard-earned and have like there's like a reasonable like path to how he got here.
Also, I still love Junko as a villain.
She's
Junko's
a great
still
villain.
pretty good.
Yeah.
If her being an AI means she's basically immortal now, I'm fine with that. I love Junko.
Yeah,
It
we talked about
basically
it
does.
when we were playing through that part, but Junko has that kind of like eternal appeal that Junko is better than the Joker.
Yeah.
And I like Junko better.
Like
there's
no
a
matter
reason that
what,
she's
like
the most cosplayed character in Guinness Book of World Records.
the thing is that you know Junko is a horrific monster. You know that nothing is going to go well by you being in her presence or living through her nonsense. But she's so goddamn charismatic that she can still she makes you second guess doing the sensible, and she makes you second guess doing what is good for your self-being or for your well-being.
She is an enabler. I mean, this is kind of undone in the anime, but the good thing about media is you can just look at shit that happened in it and say, no, that didn't happen. But
that is
canonically,
yeah.
in my head, she worked on all of these people in her school and manipulated them and made them do what they did. And that takes talent.
Yeah, that's
Well,
that's the impression I got from just the game, like not seeing the anime.
Well, that's the thing that the game tells you very explicitly, like throughout all this, and even Hajime mentions it. It's like her cult of personality pulled you all under, and you never came back.
I mean, like, even the depth to what they did, even when she's dead, they would still graft, like...
Well, they worshipped
remains of
her.
her.
They absolutely worshipped her.
And that's the thing is, like, the game spends a lot of time building up that narrative. Like, it was always implied that Junko destroyed these people in a way that they loved her. And then when the anime actually pulls the wall back over how that happened, the way that they do it makes the characters more sympathetic. Because the way that you think about, like, the way that it's presented, like, regardless of it, there is some very uncomfortable moral ambiguity with these characters. At the end of the day, they may have been manipulated, but they did what they did willingly.
Yeah, they killed people.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
the anime tries to undo that, but like I said, I like to think that something different happened, and yeah, they were manipulated, but they are still culpable, and that's why they live with this guilt of having to atone.
Yeah, there are parts of the anime that kind of cheapen this game's ending and the choice that DVAC was talking about earlier with, like, hey, you are choosing to accept that you committed atrocities and are trying to live and move past that. And the way that the anime makes the changes that it does kind of cheapens that and makes that choice, like, it takes away the impact of that choice.
Yeah, because the way that they're described in the game, I mean, and I love that it's like they don't remember, so like they're only like left to speculate what kind of horrible shit they did and like tie that back to their quirks. And like it really puts a sinister edge to how like Akane is very like animalistic and hungry for meat all the time, and like just as you think about each character, like, oh my god, like.
Well,
you know,
Mikon is
Mikon,
probably the
yeah.
biggest one of them because she's a nurse. It's a very easy kind of body horror trope. Like, she is the one that enabled all the grafting shit to be done with Junko. And
Yeah,
Doctor's
and
Office
the game
is
also-
scary enough
themselves,
in the first
like,
place.
What would they do to other people if they do that to themselves? Right? Like, they tortured people to death.
Like, by the end of her case, you are supposed to be scared of Mikon. She is like a... Because, like... And even in this game, Mikon commits probably the most grisly murders in the game. Like, she cuts someone's throat and hangs another person.
Yeah.
And that was just
You
her
know,
remembering.
And those are two people that she is supposed to care about. Like, those are her friends.
So then you get a little taste of that, and you just imagine, okay, what the fuck is everybody else like then?
Yeah, even thinking about, like,
I think
Gundam is not the type of person I was... For all what he says, you don't expect him to commit a murder, but he did.
Mm-hmm.
And the game itself kind of very much puts it as a... Him and Nidai agree that one of them is not leaving, and the person who does will take the fall. Like, it sets up a victim and it sets up a fall, and it could go either way.
Right, because the
Yeah,
other
they
option
both
is to just sit
arguably-
there and starve to
Yeah.
death.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
they're
they agree
still
on it,
willing to take the step.
Yeah, it's very came across very much like they're both willing to die, you know, but they couldn't just choose. They had to fight it out.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Man.
I'm afraid I think we've come to the end of our time because we have a werewolf game to play.
Oh boy.
But this has been nice. It's we can go into this a little more maybe if we decide to watch the anime, which
Yeah, I really want to watch the anime now.
Yeah.
I
you
think
see
that
more
as
of
we...
these characters, and that's why I love the Despair arc. You get to see them.
Yeah, like, for the problems that I have with it, the Despair arc is incredibly... It gives you a lot of those... It gives you the time with those characters and gives you some of those interactions that we didn't get.
Mm-hmm. So, until next time, if you're watching this, just stay on the channel until I upload a new video, okay?
Yeah, at some point, I don't know how we're going to do it, but I'm sure we'll probably do a debrief at the end of the anime where we talk about things and kind of go over
Well,
that, you know.
Once Danganronpa's, once you start, you can't stop.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And, yeah,
I'm Polahoko, here with their buddies, DVAC,
SethSeries, or
and-
fuck.
Well, sound off, everybody.
It's me, Devious Vacuum.
We did it backwards.
It doesn't matter.
SethSeries and iCat. Anyway, good night. See you guys later.
Have a good night, everybody.